a challenge for you, and you're proud that you've overcome that, is this the place to talk about that? Not necessarily. Okay? I would caution you against that, because you do not want to raise any red flags that you do not have to raise. Okay? This is not true confessions. Okay? This is where you want to present yourself in the strongest light, if that makes sense. Okay? However, there are some challenges that I have seen done very well. A very prominent pediatric dentist who works in this town, I still recall his personal statement, because he was homeless, his family lived in a van, and he overcame those challenges to become the person he was. Okay? So sometimes those challenges can be talked about and discussed to really talk about how far you've come in this process, if that makes sense. Okay? Questions about just that?
So there are things to avoid that are too common, or maybe just not.
Well, I will tell you the most common one we see is my aunt was sick, I was sick, my doctor saved my life, and I'm going to be just like my doctor. Those are very common themes, I think. Certainly the personal crisis situation. Never, oh, I struggled so hard in biochem. It was the worst class for me. They don't need to know that. You got a B. It's okay. Okay? Don't show any red flags that don't need to. You should always come from a position of strength, if that makes sense. Does that?
Yeah, just kind of. So what about something that doesn't necessarily tie into medicine,
Fine.
like leadership?
Totally fine. Your theme could be leadership. What are some other themes, Catherine, that you've seen in reading statements?
I mean, mine wasn't about medicine at all, really.
No? Do you mind sharing what you did with yours?
I just talked about a time I helped a friend in this. So it was more a theme of compassion, I guess, really friendship. And then I connected that and kind of encouragement as well. So that a time someone had encouraged me, and then tied it in to being a physician. So nothing really was medically focused.
Yeah. So why are personal statements required? They help assess your motivation. Make you help understand why medicine. One of the biggest things I've seen with criticisms I've heard from some of the deans of admissions is, you sound like you could easily be a social worker. Why not be a social worker? Why medicine? You still have to address the prompt. Why medicine? Or why, physical therapy. Actually, for physical therapy, you actually have a prompt. Who's PT? You actually have a prompt that you specifically have to address.
Do you know that?
Yep, we know it. It's the
We didn't know it.
It's the same as
It's the
last
same
year.
one as last year.
It is the same as last year.
I talked to Cameron, I thought that's what it said.
Yep, yep.
Show.
Yep, and we can help you with that individually. But you still have to address why medicine. You can create this glorious story, but it never says why medicine. How are you going to take these skills that you've learned and become a good healthcare provider? So you realize that you have secondary applications as well. So once you submit your primary, if schools really like you, they're going to send you supplemental or secondary applications. Some of the standard questions on the supplementals are, and I mean, most all schools use the same types of supplementary questions. Tell us about an experience when you've interacted with a diverse population and how you work with diverse people. Okay? You all will have to answer that. So maybe your personal statement should not be about that. Your secondary will also probably say why our school. Then you have to dig into, and we'll cover that a little later this week, but you want to avoid some of those things then on your personal statement, because then you're going to have to regurgitate them again on your secondary. So you want to not do that. Let's see, what you did and how you prepared, who you are and why you want to be a healthcare provider. your personal statement can seem impossible because you're supposed to showcase yourself without coming across as arrogant or conceited. So you need to be assertive, and you need to have a limited amount of space to share your information, and you may not know what to include and what to leave out. So you want to find your strategy, and that could be the scope, your content, your focus, your style. I don't encourage you to start with a quote, because that's wasted space, and too many people do that. And I don't encourage you to be too lighthearted in this process. You can be a little lighthearted, but and then determine your theme, what ties your ideas together, and what you want to share about you that's personal or painful. So here are the prompts. This was the PT prompt last time. Describe a meaningful experience in your life. Reflect on how the experience influenced your personal growth, such as your attitudes or perceptions. So remember, the main theme is why you're pursuing medicine. And it's generally 2 to 3 stories that lead to the same theme. It could be a story that comes out of one of your experiences that you're going to elaborate on a little bit more, if that makes sense. It probably, and I'll tell you just some other ones to avoid, just because they don't make you seem unique. Tell me about the population that applies to the University of Utah Medical School. Who are they?
White returned missionaries.
I'm glad you said that. White returned missionaries from Utah. Okay, so what does that demographic stereotypically have in common? That their mission experience was what? Transformative, right? It should have been transformative. Should you always, your personal statement, always be a story from your mission? Guess what? Your mission set you up for all the experiences that came later. And it's great to say, you know, I was able to go serve in a country or here in the States for 2 years, and from that, the skills I developed led me to do this, okay? That makes you a little more unique than 80% of the BYU applicants to the University of Utah or Rocky Vista that we see. I swear they look like clones. Do not be a clone, okay? Do not be that stereotypical person. The other pitfall that you can get into is to talk too much about your family that you've created in school and how you're unique because you got married and had kids in college. Okay? I have heard people on the selection committee at the University of Utah say, if I see one more person that puts that they have a wife and a child and that makes them unique, I'm going to vomit, because guess what? I have kids. I have a family. Everybody does. It does not make you unique. Okay? So you can avoid that typically. Stay yourself. And we're going to move into a discussion about branding in a little bit here that hopefully will get you to think more about that. Be unique. You need to be unique. So I love these characteristics. These are characteristics of a good healthcare provider. So these could also create the theme for your personal statement. Integrity, compassion, empathy, communication, teamwork, problem solving, patience, leadership, discipline. Those all could be worked into themes for your personal statement. These are some other themes you could use: attention to detail, thoroughness, emotional stability, grit, the ability to overcome obstacles, putting things into perspective, calm, level-headed, respect, teamwork, and perseverance. Like I said, you're going to have access to all of these PowerPoints if you want to refer back to these. Yeah, I love this. If I were to ask all of you as freshmen in that Tuesday morning 7 o'clock class why you were going into healthcare, how many of you would have said, I love science and I want to help people? Everybody. I think everybody says that. Don't be that person. That should not be the theme of your personal statement. And medicine is where I can find that. Medicine is a hard career. It's a really difficult difficult career. It takes more than just loving science and helping people to get through a career in healthcare. Okay, so try to avoid that as your theme because it is not unique. So this is an example. You had an experience of being thrown from a horse, dislocating your hip the day before completing an important riding competition. Serious injury led to disappointment while at the hospital. Roommate had both legs amputated due to diabetes. The theme is putting elements of life into perspective. Okay, so while your life was crashing in on you, your roommate in the hospital just had both legs amputated. So other related stories could be how you felt as a patient, things about medical service that you appreciated, how time away from writing led to your development of an interest in science or healthcare, and your ability to overcome adversity. We've talked about this, how to develop your theme, what are the traits that are most important to you, because that's going to be very different. So each of you values different things, each of you has different life priorities. So we did do some little, I don't know what we're going to do this right now. Okay, we did last year. Developing your content, your past experiences, things that don't fit. Oh, never, 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 never talk about your grades or your entrance exam score in your personal statement. Why? Raise your hand. Somebody.
I think some schools do I don't know what it's called, but it's an interview where they're looking at your grades and your GPA. It's only based on your personal statement.
Got it.
And then you have the opportunity there to tell them if there's anything wrong.
Exactly. So most of the schools you go to, when you go for your interview, the people interviewing you do not know your GPA and they do not know your scores. Why would you tell them that? Okay? That will get added back into the equation later by the selection committee. Remember, the people who interview you are not the selection committee, typically. Their job is just to interview you. And most schools do what's called a holistic review of the applicant. So they're only interviewing you based on your experiences, okay? If you got an interview, your GPA and your entrance exam score was good enough, okay? So take it. Don't bring up red flags like that on your personal statement because they will see your personal statement, okay? So you don't need to do that. Again, we said 2 to 3 stories that demonstrate why, conclusion, should wrap up your stories and reiterate your theme, and then frame your stories. They do need to be written a little creatively, just to spark interest in them. I was reviewing somebody's disadvantage statement just yesterday, and I said, you know, you need to move something from the middle of the paragraph that really sparks my interest. I started working at age 11, okay? That, to me, makes me want to read about this person that started work at age 11. Okay, because guess what? As I'm reading these 4,000 personal statements and applications, I am looking for something that sparks my attention. Okay, if I'm the typical reviewer of applications, I'm doing this outside my normal work life. I've volunteered or been voluntold to be on this committee and read these and interview these people. So I'm reading that late at night, I'm tired, and guess whose I pay attention to? The unique ones, the ones that draw me in initially. So yes, your personal statement needs to have a hook at the beginning. You need to draw that reader in, and your experiences need to draw the reader in as well. At our Writing Center, we can help you with some of that. Opening sentences are important. Like we said, draw the reader in, set the theme or the tone. Be descriptive, but not too descriptive. Using action words and adjectives. This is just an example. I'm not going to read it because I read some other ones. And I think all this is pretty similar. So Casey's going to talk to you a little bit about establishing a brand. Who came to visit and listen to Cody Sanders when he came to visit?
A few of you.
A few of you came. Cody Sanders is one of our alumni who came and talked with us this year and last year as well. He always comes down and visits, and he just matched with neurology. He went to the University of Utah Medical School, matched with neurology at Brown University, one of the most prestigious neurology programs. And he came from rural Utah, and I still remember his personal statement. It was so cool. He talked about that kind of rural background and things like that. But when he talked to us, he's actually been on the University of Utah Medical School Selection Committee, and he talked to us about branding. And so Casey's going to lead us through a discussion about that.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about, you know, your challenge for the week of finding what your brand is, but I actually found a really cool article when I was sitting here yesterday, and I thought that it would be cool to kind of share some of the information with you guys. I also, Amy took a picture when Cody Sanders was here of what his brand was, so I'll read that to you. So it says, my name is Cody Sanders, and I am a musician and a philanthropist who works strenuously to give back to rural underserved areas where I grew up. So really simple, but it tells you exactly what type of a person he is, what type of a brand he has. The biggest thing with your brand is finding your passion. I wrote that on the board too. Find a passion that will drive you. Hopefully all of you, you know, throughout your time at SUU have kind of found what your passion is. That doesn't mean that if you're going into med school you have to decide if you want to be, you know, work with kids or what, because again that's kind of based on your boards, but kind of knowing on what group of people that you like working with the most. You know, maybe you've spent a lot of time working with elderly, a lot of time working with, you know, maybe you spent a lot of time at Chrysalis or working with, you know, children that have special needs. Maybe you spent a lot of time with underprivileged groups, so Latino or Hispanic community. You know, maybe you're like Cody and you spent a lot of time in rural areas. You come from a rural area, you're hoping to give back to rural areas. You know, things like that. And then, you know, finding what your passion is. What is it that really made you want to go into pharmacy or dental or medicine or PT? What was it that gave you that passion to want to do that? Because all of you didn't just wake up one day and just decide, oh, I'm just going to go be a doctor. I don't know why, but I'm just going to go do that. But it was like what Rita was saying with the personal statements. It's deciding what it is that drives you and gives you that passion. And then the other thing that they actually talked about, which sometimes we touch on this, is your online presence. So sometimes people use their social media, and you probably should go ahead and clean it up, because the AMC actually said that in this article that I read, that a lot of times they will look up people on social media. So if you have inappropriate things on your Facebook or your Instagram or your Twitter, you probably should go in and go through it and delete it, because if they are going to go in and look up, you don't want them to see that. But the use of your social media is actually really good, because you can use it to, you know, post pictures of your cultural immersion trips that you've gone on, or, you know, maybe you have a huge passion for animals, and you can use your social media to post things like that. Volunteer stuff that you've done, even if it's things with your family that you've done volunteering, maybe that you're not even going to put on your application. It just kind of shows who you are as a person, and it helps you to stand out. That's one of the biggest things, like Rita was saying, is trying to stand out and be different from everybody else in the room. Because you guys all have good grades, or you wouldn't be applying. You wouldn't be at this stage if, you know, your grades weren't good and you weren't ready. So you all have to, it's just finding something different and unique about all of you, which I know every single one of you has something unique about you that nobody else in the room has. And then ways to create a personal brand. They actually had kind of like an activity of how to do this. So the first thing to think about is, what are you passionate about? What is the one thing that you have a passion for? Does anybody want to volunteer and raise their hand and say what they're passionate about? It can be anything. It doesn't have to do with medicine. It can be anything. No? Yeah?
I'm really interested in leadership and helping other people find their leadership style.
Okay, that's good. That's a good one. Okay, what else? Yeah?
The quest for answers. My father had cancer, for instance, a really rare and aggressive type, and so ever since then I've just been really driven toward answers.
Yes, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, anybody else? I know you guys have passions. You have things that you care about. Maybe you're really passionate about sports. I'm really passionate about animals. I love dogs. I'm obsessed with dogs. I have two, and I think they're like the greatest thing in the whole world. I'm not a vet. I didn't go into vet school, but I love dogs. Let's see, what else? Maybe you have a passion to make a difference in the world. You want to be that one person who makes a difference. Maybe you don't care about getting the credit for it, but you want to make a difference in other people's lives, right? I'm sure all of you kind of want that because that's why you picked to go into healthcare. Am I right? Everybody wants to make a difference in somebody's life? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. And then what is your life's mission statement? What do you strongly believe in? That's kind of similar to passion, but maybe you have a really strong belief that nobody can talk you out of it, and it's something that is really important to you. And maybe that would help you pick which school you want to go to. Maybe something that's really important to you and their mission kind of match up. I remember Edgar telling me actually when he went to the school that he's attending. What's the optometry school again? Yes, thank you. So he said that when he went there, he said they really focused on family and having a wife and a child. That was really important to him. He said the other schools he went to, they didn't focus on that. They didn't really seem to care as much about that. And he said he felt like everybody was so nice. They were like, we have so many activities for you and for your child and for your whole family together. And maybe that's something that's important to you. Maybe you have kids and a wife or a husband, and you really want a school that has, family values. Maybe that's one thing that is that you strongly believe in, that's important to you. And then, what are your top 3 strengths? One thing they actually suggested doing is talking to your family, your classmates, your friends, and asking them, what do you think are my top 3 strengths? What are the things that you think that I'm good at? Maybe they say, you're extremely kind. You're always caring about other people. You're always putting other people first, because there are people like that. There are people that do that, and maybe it's your mom. Maybe it's your mom that is that person that is always putting others, before herself. And maybe she can help give you some of your strengths, and maybe your friends can help give you some of your strengths too. But it's finding what your top 3 strengths are and talking about them when you are picking your brand. Yeah?
Sorry, just go back to that second bullet point with the what you strongly believe in.
Uh-huh.
How much or can religion even play a part in your application?
Rita?
Religious beliefs.
Yeah, be very, very cautious with that. Especially remember, you're not just applying to religious schools. You're applying to medical school. I would be very cautious, and we can help edit some of that individually. Yep.
Yeah, when we talk about beliefs, I mean, like Rita said, I wouldn't totally go into religion, but it can be beliefs in other things. It kind of goes along with, your passion, what you're passionate about. Maybe for you it's research, and maybe you really care a lot about research, or you care a lot about working with underprivileged communities, kind of a lot of, similar things with beliefs and things you're passionate about.
I think you have to also think about your audience. Your audience is a very different audience than you've experienced in your undergrad experience. You're applying to medical schools throughout the country. You are going to have a variety of diverse people judging you. Unfortunately, that's just the way this process works. So again, be cautious that you're not offending too many people in that statement. This is not it's not your personal testimony of and standing up on your soapbox. So political, religious, some of those things probably need to be toned down a little bit.
So I can give an example. I'm actually really passionate about mental health. I think that's an extremely important thing to people that is very, given not enough attention, not enough people think about it. So maybe that's something that you're passionate about. It's not religious, it's not political. I mean, it can be in some of my opinions, but mostly I just care, mental health, I think it's really important, and people don't utilize it, and they can't a lot of times because they can't afford it. So maybe it's something like that that you're really passionate about. are you a strong leader or a good follower? So when people think of follower, they always think of, oh, well, they're, they follow all the other people. They can't make their own decisions. But when I think of follower, I don't think of it like that, and they weren't saying it in that way. I think of it as, are you a good team player? Sometimes when maybe you're not the best leader, maybe you're a little shy, you're not the most outgoing person, but maybe you work incredible on a team. And that's really important in healthcare. You're going to be working with, especially as a doctor, with nurses and all different other staff. It's not just about you. Any form of healthcare, you're going to be communicating with families and children and working with lots of other people. So I think, maybe you are a really good leader, but maybe you're also better working with a group of people and with a team. So kind of, pick which of those you're better at, and maybe, pick some of the experiences you've had or ask some of your friends. And you probably know if you're more of a leader or if you're more of a follower or team player. But that's one thing to think about. And then, kind of, what we said about strengths, what do other people see in you? Ask some of your classmates, ask some of your friends, family, and tell them to give you, 3 strengths. And maybe you can do it together. Maybe they have a resume they're writing because they're applying for a job, or they're not going into healthcare. Or maybe they're going to grad school and they have an interview. Sit down together and maybe come up with some ideas of what your strengths are together. And then this, if you guys want to read the article, this is it. So it's all in the folder and we'll share it with you guys. It was actually a really cool article to read. And it kind of helps with, brainstorming. If you guys actually wanted to, go ahead and do this, it might be really helpful to finding your brand, which is pretty much for your personal statement. And when Cody's here on Friday, I told him to kind of chat about this a little bit more. Yeah, so he'll be here on Friday. I told him to chat about this a little bit more and, call on a few of you guys to maybe say what your brand is. So hopefully by Friday, everybody has at least an outline or half of their personal statement done. That would be, our hope. I think last year I read probably like 10 by Friday. I think most people had theirs pretty ready to at least be edited. But do you guys have a better understanding now of what a brand is, what we're looking for when we say that? Because I know yesterday when I explained it, it didn't make as much sense, but this article was super helpful. So
you may also want to think about it when you're interviewing. As someone who's done a lot of interviews, typically, I've done 4 or 5 interviews in a day. And at the end of the day, oftentimes I can't even remember anything unique about the person that interviewed first. They all were clones. They all looked the same. There was nothing unique, okay? So your brand really helps you frame some of your answers to your interview questions so that when you leave, that interviewer says, I want the person that had this brand. Does that make sense? So think through that and think, okay, what do I want them to remember about me? So it could be the theme in your experiences, theme in your personal statement, and then the theme throughout your interview. Okay? We're happy to walk around and answer questions, look at some of your stuff, things like that. Catherine, anything else you want to share as our experienced wisdom person?
Like, it takes a long time to write your personal statement, so just be patient. And always just be thinking about, like, your order of your structure and stuff, and if it can be rearranged, maybe that will help your theme better develop or something like that.
Mm-hmm. We may actually shake up your paragraphs and put the bottom one at the top. So, yeah.
I think the best personal statements that I've read are the ones that start with the story. And not the descriptive of describing like the sheets and the pillow, because nobody really cares. I don't want to read that. That's really boring. But I've read a lot of personal statements where people start off with a story or a quote, and those are the best ones to read because it makes you want to read it. It's not that boring personal statement. And a lot of people do choose to write their personal statements on their cultural immersion trips. So I think that's good, but I think I would try to add more to that. If you are going to talk about your cultural immersion trip and your personal statement, I would think that it would be better you know, if we were to talk about going to the Dominican Republic, it'd be good to tie in, oh, I also had experience back in the States working with Latino and Hispanic population. Not just saying, this cultural immersion trip is all that I did.
Right.
Because especially at the University of Utah, they've read hundreds of those because
Same-
they get a lot of
Same as being a
students.
return missionary. Everybody's done a cultural immersion trip.
Right, so, you know, be careful about that. Try to add a little different spin to it so you're not writing the same thing as your neighbor.
Yeah. Great. We're happy to go around and see what you have questions on. Any other questions? Great. Keep working hard. Oh, the other thing. Am I doing letters right now? I think Casey just told me we're supposed to talk about letters of recommendation. Are we doing PowerPoint on that, or can we just chat about
You
it?
can just chat about it. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think there's a PowerPoint.
Who has questions about letters of recommendation? Okay, that was a quick presentation. Everybody knows?
People asked me yesterday.
Oh, they did. Okay, so anybody have questions about the letter writing process? For those of you who are medical, got an email from Dr. Warner. Did you get a second email from Dr. Warner yesterday?
Yes.
And what did he say? Did he basically say, if you are good and you want your letter right away, you can get it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I had a conversation with him yesterday, kind of explaining that once you hit a certain point in your MCAT score, like if you get a 505, you're good for a lot of schools. But if you're not going to retake until July or August, you're not going to get your score till August or September. And if they take a month, that's October before you get a letter. That's really not fair to you. So if you want to get that letter with your 505, 502, whatever, do it. I also shared with them that most admissions programs will redact the score if they put it in the letter of recommendation anyway. So if you have specific questions, yeah, Scott?
Sorry. You were going to say.
I was going to say, I'll chat with you all about individual questions about that.
How do we find out which schools would like a committee letter versus schools that would like individual letters?
So for MD schools, the only school that does not want a committee letter is the University of Utah Medical School. So you submit your letters. Now, he will submit your individual letters, and I believe the way they submit will work for the University of Utah.
So the people who are writing these letters, do they have to go on and like create an account somewhere? It's not as easy as just like sending an email to somebody.
It's not. So your letter writers, typically you're putting their email address in a prompt in your application. They then get a queue, an email, to go onto a portal and create an account and upload their letter. If you have an 80-year-old physician writing a letter for you, that might be a challenge. Or someone who is, not technologically savvy. We're happy to help walk somebody through that if they need our help. If that makes sense.
I'm sorry, but so if I have a physician who would like to write me a letter for his alum,
Yes.
or alma mater, excuse me, but he is not included in the letter.
You can add his email on your CAS separately.
Okay, so I can
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I could add one letter.
Yes. Yes, you can always add more letters, and I believe you can even direct those letters through some CASs to certain schools. So, yeah, so if you have an alumni of Stanford that wants to write a letter just for your Stanford application, but I wouldn't apply to Stanford, sorry, bad analogy. We've never had anybody get into Stanford, but doesn't mean you can't have a dream school. Certainly an alum would be a self-directed letter. Okay. Any other cautions about letters of recommendation that you can think of?
Well, I guess I'm confused because it seems like the committee package has to have 3 letters plus the decision list.
Yes.
That just seems like
I'm not sure how he's doing it, but I'll work on that with him directly. If you have questions about the letter writing process, I'm happy to flesh those out with Dr. Werner.
So I had a question. That example you gave from the old physician. To know that they got it, the letters into your onto the CAS, is there a way to see that?
You get a prompt when that letter is delivered to your CAS.
Yeah, and that shows up green.
Yep, yep. And you'll be able to open up your CAS and see if your letters are in there. Yep.
Can I just say something really quick? So we just went to WAHP and I sat in with ICOM and it was their acceptance people and they were talking about these letters of recommendation and they were saying, you know, some schools will say we want 3 letters or whatever, but you can submit up to 8 or whatever, however many you want. And so they were saying, whatever letters you submit, they read. So if you're going to submit these letters, they highly, highly, highly recommended that they are unique letters. So that you have somebody that says that they know this about you, like, so one of your strengths, and they focus on that strength in their letter, and then somebody else's letter focuses on a different strength. They said, we don't want, you know, copy letters, basically copy and paste from somebody else's, because there's no reason for you to submit those. We've already read it in the first 3 letters you submitted. I don't need 5 more that tell me the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you have these unique letters that talk, like I say, about a specific strength that you have, then go ahead and submit that one as well if they allow you to submit more. Yeah.
Well, how do we know that?
Because you've talked to them and said, hey, will you write me this, you know, amazing letter? And like, what are my strengths? What would you write about for me? And then you have an idea that Dr. So-and-so saw that, you know, I'm really compassionate and he's going to write about that. You know, or my employer knows that I'm a really good team player because I was a manager for McDonald's or whatever. You know what I mean? And they know that about me, so they're going to write about that. So you have an idea. Does that make sense? But they were just saying, just be cautious. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, as far as those letters. They don't want to read 8 letters that say the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's not a popularity contest.
Yeah. If it's not something unique about you or something specific about you, they don't want it. They don't want the letter, so. And that's what they recommended too, is when you do ask somebody to write a letter, it's not, I mean, you obviously, hey, can you write an amazing, you know, like, letter about me? But it's okay to say, can you write an amazing letter about this?
This aspect of who you are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like I said, even have that conversation before you ask for that letter. Like Casey said, what are my strengths? You know, what did you see in the time that I spent with you? What did you see were my strengths? And do you think you could write a letter about that for me? An amazing letter.
Yeah.
Because I'm applying for school, kind of thing. Yeah, not just a generic, hey, can you write a letter for me?
Yeah.
And don't email them and say, hey, can you write a letter for me?
Well, good. We're happy to kind of roam around a little bit and see what you guys are writing about or look at stuff. The Writing Center is open too for you to access. And we'll be chatting at what time? What's next?
So we'll take a break for 30 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll do what to be doing while applying and then loan repayment. So you guys can take a quick little break and then.